Here's to Main Street, not Wall Street. Here's to being invested in each other. Here's to a return to what matters. Elevations Credit Union. It matters where you bank. Visit us online to see why.
All right, we only have a couple of minutes, so we're going to get right into this. This is a class that I wrote because our market has changed, and many of us are in sellers markets or about to be. How many of you are in a sellers market right now? How many of you think your market's going to be a seller's market very quickly? Okay. So it's a completely different dynamic. So we want to actually start thinking about how we're going to do that. Now, a couple of assumptions we want to make before we start, and this is just my viewpoint on the real estate industry. I don't think there's a silver bullet to our business. I really don't. I don't think there's a magic wand. Would you guys agree? I think if you sit down with somebody who's doing well in real estate, you're going to see a couple things consistently, and this is what you see. They work hard. Do we work hard? What do you think? We do. We work really hard. Here's the other thing. They have discipline. In other words, they consistently do the right things over time that get them the results they want. I'm not sure there really is a magic postcard that gets you 30 listings in 30 days. Would you guys agree? I have never seen it. And I have looked. So in this market, if we're going to be in a seller's market, I think we have to think differently. In fact, I think we have to act differently. We're going to have to actually do different behaviors that we have not done in the past. So we're going to talk about this today, how to prospect for sellers. We're going to talk about going back to the basics. We're going to talk about connecting with your sphere and then doing some things in the local level that allow us to really connect with people. And then we're going to talk a little bit about technology. All right, back to the basics. Let's do the hard stuff first. Old school door knocking. Now, very few of us like to do this, but I want to point out one thing about this market. If you're in a seller's market, there's something very unique about this kind of market that offers a really cool opportunity, and here's what it looks like. In a seller's market where you've been in a buyer's market, we've gone through the downturn, and people have lost values. Anybody in a market that's gone through that? Here's what happens. You have people sitting there in homes that they would like to sell. In fact, they would have liked to sell them a couple years ago, but they couldn't or they wouldn't. Why? The market wouldn't allow them to get the number that they wanted. Is that correct? So they're sitting there waiting for the number to get right. Does that sound accurate? Now here's another thing that's happened. They may have had their house on the market before. Is that true? And they didn't sell it or they wouldn't sell it because they couldn't get the right number. So if you are going to do the hard work and have the discipline to go out and knock on doors, what I'd like to do is get you to the right conversation as quickly as we can. So it might sound like this. I'm so-and-so with such and such real estate company, and here is some market info on sales in your neighborhood. Demand for homes and prices are up. Would you consider selling if you could get the right price? And you're going to look for the yes. Well, if we could get the right price, we could consider selling it. Now, the next question I think to ask is, well, what do you think the number is? Now, here's what I'd like you to be thinking about. If they're willing to give you the number, are you in a position where you now know how to help them? What do you think? And you just got to the door. Now, one of the other questions I'm going to want to ask, and just so you know, I really believe in the value of asking questions. I think the best salespeople in the world are not the best talkers. They are really the best listeners, but not only that, they always ask great questions. Here's a great question. If you did move, where would you go? What will this tell me when they tell me where they'd go? Potentially how what? Motivated they are, right? Do we want to work with people that are truly motivated? What about the person that says, well, I don't have anywhere to go. If I can get the right price for my house, I'll sell it. If not, I'll just stay. What do you think? Is that a great client? Maybe not. So if you were to move, where would you go? And then the last question would be, can I do some research and get back to you? So what do you have now? You have a prospect. Is that correct? Is this somebody you can now cultivate and follow up with and see if it can develop into a real conversation about listing their property? You do. And how long have you been at the door? Literally. A minute or two, correct? It's very quick and very efficient. So here's the question that I'm going to ask everybody in the room. If you did this 3 hours a week, what would happen? You think you might run into people that are really wanting to sell. You may start accumulating a list of people that are ready to sell when they can hit the right number. Not only that, you know the number. I know this is hard work and not everybody wants to do it. I just want you to see the opportunity. Because this market where things are getting better presents this unique set of circumstances that we can leverage by asking the right questions. Now, if you're going to work with Fizzbuzz, let's go through that because that's the hard part too. 90% eventually list with a real estate agent. Why do they list? They get tired, right? It's hard work. Here's one of the things that almost every Fizzbuzz believes, and this is very unique. They think that once it's under contract, it's over. Right? And we all know the party has just started, right? And they haven't even started to go through the hard part. That's the easy part. So call and introduce yourself as an agent. I'm going to give you a little way to approach this. It's a little softer than maybe what you've heard in the past. Introduce yourself as an agent and then ask this question. If I brought you a buyer, would you pay me a co-op? Is that a good question? The next question would be, what did you have in mind? Because you want to know what their co-op is that they have in mind. Because if it's like, a 12-pack of Coke, I don't know that this is really my client. But if they say something reasonable, like we were hoping to, do 2.5 or whatever percent, right? I think now I have somebody that I'm willing to have a conversation with. Here's what I want you to know if you're willing to make these calls. If they're willing to pay you 2.5, 2.5, 2.8, 3%, you guys are already halfway home. Is that true? They're already willing to pay half a commission. They're just not willing to pay yours. Is that true? So the next question is, do you mind if I come by and see your house? And they might ask you, well, why do you want to come and see the house? And I would say, well, if you're willing to pay a co-op in this market, your house is now part of the inventory. And if you want me to have a really good chance to find you a buyer and sell your house, it would help me to really understand your house better. Is that a good reason to go over? Now, is this a listing appointment? No, because you didn't ask for permission to come over and list their house. You asked for permission to come over and what? See it. So you just want to come over and see the house. And then bring something of value. I'm going to talk a little bit about what to bring. And then you want to interview the seller and take notes about the property. Why do we interview the seller? Well, here's why. You think every seller makes a great client for us? What could be wrong with these people? Could they have an unrealistic expectation of the value of their house? What do you think? Could they be really kind of difficult to deal with? What do you think? Could they be crazy? Has anyone ever worked with a crazy client? Raise your hand. Go ahead. We're among friends, right? Was this a good experience? No. As a matter of fact, tell me if I'm wrong. At the end of the transaction, if you got paid, you looked at the paycheck and you went, yeah, that wasn't worth it. Would you agree? So here's what I recommend you do. If you really think they're crazy, they're mentally defective, just walk away because it's not worth it. I want to know this up front. And I promise you, if you work with a crazy person, I don't care who you are in this room, if you did this before, you knew it before you did it. Didn't you? You got back out in your car the first time you met them and you went, whoa. Right? So interview the seller. Then bring them something of value. So I'm going to give them some information. Here's what I'm probably going to bring. The for sale by owner disclosure form. Now we have an actual form that's called the for sale by owner disclosure form. So you want to bring them that. And then I'm going to give them a blank standard buy and sell contract. How many pages is the buy and sell contract today? 16. Does it look kind of complicated? Okay. Then I'm going to give them the property disclosure, measurement disclosure, lead-based paint forms, and booklet. I'm going to give them all that, right? Just give them this little pile of stuff. Then I'm going to give them any other required forms that you use locally. I'm going to give them a blank listing agreement. Listing agreement. And I would tell them, look, if you ever list your house, you're probably going to use this form. It's the one we use in Colorado. Now, if you're going to do this, don't give them the ones that are imprinted with your name and your company because you don't want them to actually use it. Right? You don't want to have them use this for their transaction, which gets you entangled in their, because now you've got to explain it to somebody at some point, right? So go to the Real Estate Commission and print off the ones that are on the Real Estate Commission website that are blank, that don't have any names on them, right? Let them use them. It's okay. And then you might give them a resume. If you have a resume, tell the story of your business. Put down how long you've been in business, how many transactions you've done, what your services are like, right? Put down your resume. What kind of training have you done? And then you might include your comprehensive marketing plan. One of the challenges that for sale by owners have is that they're really challenged with doing the marketing on their property. Is that true? So show them what you're going to do. Give them a real detailed analysis of what it is you're going to do for marketing. And then you could ask this question at the right moment. If you were to list your home, would you let me apply for the job? Is that a nice way to ask? And that, if they say, sure, we'd like to let you apply, now you have a, what do you think? You actually have a listing appointment. So have this little question in your quiver. Use this to actually secure the listing appointment. Call every week to see if it's available. Now the conversation might go like this. I might call on Friday and I might say this. Hey, it's me. I wanted to call and see if your house is still available. I'm getting ready for another big weekend out in the field and I wanted to see if your house was still part of the inventory. And here's what's going to be happening over time. In the very beginning, they're very excited and very optimistic. Would you agree? And what happens over time? They get tired, right? They start to realize all the challenges that are involved. And what you want to do is be only the one person who's been nice to them and helpful and professional when that moment comes. Is that fair? And then would it be okay with you if I did some marketing for your house? Would it be okay with you if I did some marketing for your house? And they would say, well, what do you mean? What could you do for a house for marketing? And I'd say, well, how about if I stop by and we'll talk about it? So now what do you have? Now you really have kind of a listing appointment. Would you agree? And what I want to do is give them 3 options. 3. First one, an open listing. In Colorado, we have this addendum. This is a Colorado Real Estate Commission approved form. It's called the Open Listing Addendum. Here's what it does. It modifies the contract, an exclusive right to sell contract, and it says to the seller this. You would only pay me if I personally brought the buyer. In the event of any other sale, you don't owe us a thing. You can sell the property yourself, do whatever you want. Is this legal? It's totally legal. You ever been driving around out in the country and seen a property that has like 4 signs on it? You ever seen this? It's this. They've done an open listing with 4 different companies. Now, if you're going to do this, here's my recommendation. Check with your broker first. Could your broker say no? Okay. Now, if you're willing to pull this off, you're going to do an open listing addendum. What do you get to do with this property? Would you put it in the MLS? No. In fact, our MLS in Denver will not accept open listings. But what could you do to market the property? Could you put it on the internet? Could you put it on your website? Could you put a sign in the yard? Could you put a sign in the yard? You could. That's all right. Still your sign. You've got a listing. Well, you now have an agreement. And what I want to do is if they're willing to do this, you're halfway to where you want to go. So could there be your sign in the yard and a for sale by owner sign? There could. Now, what's the problem with this? Are you going to get some phone calls? You could get calls from buyers, but who else is going to call you? Other agents, and they're going to say what? We saw your house and can't find it in the MLS. And this is all you have to say. I'm working under an open listing. No co-op is being collected or offered. That's exactly what you want to say because that's exactly what's going on. Is that true? Now, here's a question for us. Could that broker that called you go to the seller directly? Is that okay? Do they know this? Well, what if they're not smart? Does anybody know some agents in real estate that are not very smart? So what are the chances are they know this? Do they know this? No. So here's what I recommend. Don't tell them. Don't tell them they could approach the seller directly under an open listing. Now here's what you could say. If your buyer wants to make an offer, make the offer, I'll submit it. No, seriously, why would you say that? In the agreement, what does it say? No, in your agreement with the seller, it says if I get an offer, I'm required to present it. So then you present it to the seller and you say this, here's an offer from this broker, you can deal with them directly, but you're on your own. If you want me to work with you, I can help you with this transaction, but we're going to have to elevate our relationship. Is that cool? Does that work? Is this a little edgy? All right. Is this a different set of circumstances in a seller market? All right. And every one of these you can get, you're probably going to get paid. I just want to put you in a position to get paid. Is that fair? All right, let's say you don't like this. You can do an exclusive agency. The next one that we have, and this is also a real estate commission approved form in Colorado, is exclusive agency. And here's what this does. You attach it to an exclusive right to sell and modifies the agreement that says this: does not apply to a sale of the property by the owner. In the case of any other sale, it would apply. And here's what it does. It's a really cool thing. It preserves the right of the seller to sell the property themselves, either to somebody that they're going to meet or someone they know from already marketing the property. So at this point, if they've been doing for sale by owner for a couple of weeks, do you think they already have a couple of people they're talking to that they think might buy the house? What do you think? What you're saying is you can still work with them and we're out. You can do whatever you want. Now, we all know in this room that the chances of that happening are what? Extremely small. But they like this as a seller. Here's the nice thing about this option. You would put it in the MLS. It goes in the MLS. So if you're not going to do the open and you want to do marketing for the house, come in with two options: a regular exclusive right to sell and the one that preserves the right for them to sell to themselves. Is it a good conversation to have? And you're in the door. You have an agreement. Okay? Now here's another reason why this is important. Because the market is the market, sometimes our clients, our buyer clients, are going to force us to talk to who? For sale by owners. They're going to find one and they're going to say, can you check this house out? You're going to need to know how to do this. The for sale by owner disclosure, if you guys have not looked at that, that's something you should look up. This is the for sale by owner disclosure. This is what it says. In fact, it says right under the title, for sale by owner. This is what you do. You go through the definitions. Under the definitions, you have to check one of two boxes. And the boxes are this: I work with a single person firm or I work with a multiple person firm. Now, most of you should be able to answer that. And then below that, it says, currently, while I'm having this conversation with you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'm either a transaction broker or you're my customer. Okay, so which are you? In the absence of any agreement, you're always a transaction broker. When would you be a customer approaching a for sale by owner? When you had a buyer agency with a buyer that wanted you to approach the seller. We're going to need to know how to do this because they're going to make us do it, our buyer clients. Everybody with me? Okay. All right, how about if we use Zillow for free leads? How many of us love Zillow? One. How many of us really are not sure? We like Zillow very much. A few more. Okay. So how about if we can get Zillow to give us leads for free? Would you guys like that? Here's how it works. This is a search on Zillow for all the homes for sale in Denver, city and county. On this particular day, they had 3,115. Is that an accurate number? We know that there are going to be homes in there that are not actually on the market anymore. Is that correct? Now, up here in the top left, they have this little thing next to the name Zillow. They have this thing called Homes. If you click on that, there's a drop-down menu. One of the things in the drop-down menu is for sale by owner. Okay? Right there. Now, if you actually search the same city and county on the same day, this is what I discovered. They had 1,131 homes in there on the same day. For sale by owner. Is that interesting? Here's what's interesting about this. The seller, a consumer, homeowner, can go to Zillow and they can go to this segment of the site and they can upload all the information about their property. They can put up all the pictures on the property and they can set a price that basically says, if I can get this much money for my house, I'll sell it. Is everybody with me? This is what I want you to be thinking right now, and this is a paradigm shift. Those homes are listed. They're listed with Zillow. If you have a buyer, and I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but maybe you've had a buyer and you can't find a house. Anybody ever had that experience? Okay. You're going to want to check our MLS, and then you're going to want to check this MLS. And I'm using those terms on purpose because the consumer, whether it's a buyer or seller, believes the house is listed. And if you don't think your clients or buyer clients are looking here, you're wrong. So, what do we do with that? Let me just pick one. Let's pick this one. We go to their listing page. This is the listing page on a for sale by owner in Zillow. Over here on this side, it says the owner wants $365. Below it is the Zestimate for $306. Now, we know Zestimates aren't reliable, but there's a very good chance this house is what? Overpriced. Now, over here on the right-hand side, it says call this number for more information. Whose number is that? Is it Zillow or the seller? seller. And then right below that it says, note, owner will work with buyer's agents. Here's what I want you to know. It couldn't be any easier. Zillow has done us a huge favor. They brought all those for sale by owners into one spot. They've given us their phone number and told us whether or not they're going to work with us. This is a lead list. If you're sitting in the room and you don't have enough listings, I would start there. Am I making sense? Are some of these people crazy? Yeah, we have to sort out the good ones from the bad ones. This is where the hard work and the discipline comes in, but this is how it works. So do the same thing we just talked about. Call them up, introduce yourself as an agent, interview them, follow up, right? Let's do the process. Does it take hard work and discipline? It is, but would it work? Okay? Now let's connect with your sphere, because some of you didn't like any of those ideas at all. So, all right, so let's talk about our sphere. Your past CMAs. Now, if you've been in the business for a couple of years, we went through a period of time where you would meet with sellers and go through the entire listing conversation, and at the end of the conversation, the seller would say, we can't what? We can't sell it for that much. We're going to have to wait. And you slunked back to your office, and you stuck it in a file. Am I right? Now's the time to tap the file. Open up the file. These are all people you already know, like, and trust. They already know, like, and trust you. You already know they want to sell. You even know how much they want to sell for. And you know the house. What should we do? It's a really cool thing. We should do more of it. What should we do? We should just call them. What do we say? Do a new CMA on their property and say, I wanted to check in with you and let you know things have changed. I've done a little bit of research and we might be able to sell for blank. Let's just tap the list. Some of you have a huge file. Let's just jump back into that file. Good idea? All right. Let's talk about forward calls. What does forward stand for? Come on, somebody knows. Family, occupation, recreation, and drinking. Is that right? No? What does the D stand for? Dream. So what we're doing with this concept is if we are going to talk to our clients, our past clients, people in our sphere, we should always talk to them about family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. Is that okay? Whose family, whose occupation? Theirs, right? Now, are any one of the four topics real estate? No. So what should we do when we call is just have a conversation with them about them. Now, almost everyone in this room has heard this advice before. And some of us don't call. Some of us has a friend that doesn't call. Why? Why? Do you know that in America, NER does this research every year, in America only 25% of all the people that list their home in America list it with the agent to help them buy it. Only 1 out of 4. Why does that happen? They don't stay in because they never call. So why don't we call? We're all friends. Tell me. They're embarrassed and then they're... Is there a little bit of fear in here? Would you guys agree? What are we, we're all friends here. What are we afraid of? Rejection. What would it sound like if we heard rejection? Literally, what would it sound like? Right, but you're afraid to call because of the rejection. What are we afraid of? What are we going to hear that would make us feel rejected? They say we'd really rather you didn't call anymore. Would that feel like rejection? Would that hurt? Are we all on the same page here? What percentage of the people in your database would say this out loud to you? I'm being serious. What percentage? Come on, give me a number. 1%. Is it that high? Do you realize that it's that percentage of possibility of rejection that keeps you from calling your people? Is that rational? No. Call your people. What if you did it 2 to 3 hours a week? What if you did 5 people a week? Here's one of the challenges we have with this, by the way, and I'll just be honest with you because I hear it all the time. You're going to be going through your list and you think that if you make the decision to call the people on your list, that for some reason the universe dictates that you have to call everyone in your list. And the problem with that is you're going to come through your list and then you come to that one person and you look at the name and you go, yeah. What does that mean? Nyeh. Is this the one person you really don't want to call? What do you think? You have some of those? Raise your hand if you have some of those, right? Here's what I recommend. This is my professional recommendation. When you come across that person, don't call them. And if somebody ever tells you never to call them again, this is what I recommend. Don't call them again. All right. This is not rocket science, guys. If you're going to really redo your business, if you want to do the one thing that will change everything in your business in the next 12, 24 months, call your people. Just reconnect. Here's the 2 rules. I'll give you the 2 rules. This is all you have to do. 2 very simple things. Number 1, if you're going to call your people, you are not allowed to bring up real estate. Just take it off the table. You're not allowed to bring it up unless what? Unless they do. What are the chances are they're going to bring it up? But if they don't bring it up, don't bring it up. Here's the second rule, and this is the hard one. This is the one you're going to have trouble with. When you call, just pretend you're a regular person. Just be you. Just be you calling them. Hey, it's me. I've been wondering about you. How are things? How's the family? How's Billy? Is he out of jail yet? I know it's been a while. Right? Just call. Just call. This is a story I want to tell you. He's a relational agent. This is a guy that came to me. He was a relational agent, 10 plus years in the business. And what I mean by relational is that he was one of those people that gets almost all of his business from people he knows, or he gets referrals from people he knows. Does anybody know somebody like that? Right? There's a lot of us in the room. So he's like us. In 2011, he had his worst year ever. More than 10 years in the business. Now I know John knows how to sell real estate. He had a really tough year because it was a tough year in real estate. He had his worst year. He came in at the end of the year and he was distraught. He said, I don't know what to do. We talked through a bunch of things. You know, I've done coaching forever, and we were coaching, right? And I said, well, what could you do? And we talked through some different things, and here's the decision he made. He said, in 2012, I'm going to call 5 people a day. Is that a huge undertaking? It's a commitment, correct? But you can make 5 calls to 5 people a day while you're driving. And does anybody here drive a lot? Right? So he decided he was going to call 5 people a day. And here's what he discovered in 2012. He wasn't able to do it every single day because he was, busy and life happens and stuff, right? But he was able to do it 3 or 4 days a week. In 2012, he had his best year ever. Why? Just reconnected. We told him the 2 rules. You're not allowed to bring up real estate unless they do. And just be you. Just call as a person. And he just reconnected on a personal level. Took all the stress out of it. He just made the calls. Things happened. They started talking to him. This is what he heard. He said, this is what I hear all the time. I'm so glad you called. You can't believe it. We were just talking about you last night. We're thinking about selling this year or next. Started refilling his pipeline. People he could follow up with. His business just took off. Everyone in this room has that opportunity. If there's one thing you take away from this conference, God, I hope it's this. Call your people. Make the call. You want to make it easy? Do it this way. Make a decision you're only going to do it for 2 weeks. This is not a lifetime commitment. This is not a marriage. You're just going to do it for a couple of weeks. And then if you don't like it, you have a bad experience, you can stop. And I promise you, if you do it for 2 weeks, things are going to go well. Am I on the right page here? All right. I was in your neighborhood the other day, realized we hadn't talked in a while. If you want to make a transition into talking about real estate, just ask this. Is it all right if I put my realtor hat on for a second? If you want to step over the line, do it that way. Ask permission. Have you heard about the market? Have you given any thought to moving? If you did move, where would you go? If you found the perfect home for you right now, what would it be like? So if you want to go over the line, have some questions to ask. Is this good? With today's historically low interest rates, are you currently living in the house of your dreams? It's a good question. Here's something they do not know. That the payment formula for a 30-year fixed low interest rate mortgage translates to about $4.75 a month for every $1,000 borrowed. They literally don't know that. Where do we get this data? We're all real estate professionals. We should be able to figure this out. Am I right? So you call the lender or you figure it out on one of the little apps on your phone, right? Figure out how much it costs. You should know this number because they don't know it. If you tell them the interest rate is 4 3/8 today, they can't translate that into any workable knowledge. Is that true? That's workable knowledge. Because if it's a $200,000 loan, how much is it a month? This is the math part of the exam right here. It's $950, right? Right now, a $500,000 loan is only $2,400 a month plus escrows. Now, here's another way to use this simple little fact. Have you ever had a buyer say, we're really frustrated, we think we're just going to wait and save up a bigger down payment? And this is all you have to say. You know, it makes total sense. I just want you to know that for every $1,000 you save, you lower your payment by $4.75 a month. How long does it take to save $1,000? Right? All right, sphere of influence, RPR reports. How many of you are familiar with RPR? Come on, you guys really should know this, right? What does it stand for? The Realtor's Property Resource. And this is a property-specific database about almost every property in America. How many of you have used this? Is it kind of cool? It will generate a report on each property up to 100 pages long. Now let me show you how you can leverage this into having really good conversations with the people in your database. It's got detailed information about home facts, lien lender information, maps, satellite photos, market stats, charts and graphs, and the RVM. The RVM is the Realtor Valuation Model. Here's what it does. When you pull up an address in RPR, it'll automatically calculate the current market value of the house with an algorithm that they use. Now, the Zestimate does that too, but we know the Zestimate is not accurate. Is that correct? And one of the reasons the Zestimate is not accurate is you're using all kinds of weird data. The RVM is connected to your MLS in most cases, so it's going to use MLS data to create the number. Now, is it possible the number is still off? Yes, so we're going to deal with that in a second. But here's what I want you to be thinking about. You can go to narrpr.com and access the system. Now, you have to be a realtor, and I'm fairly confident that everyone in the room is a realtor since you're at the Realtor Convention. You don't have it yet. Well, you can still do it independent. If you want to do it on a mobile device, you go to, on a mobile device, your tablet or your iPad or your phone, m.narrpr. Now, you're going to need your NRDS number to sign in. That's your realtor number, right? And then once you do that, then RPR knows that you're a realtor member. It gives you access. And here's what we can do with this. Generate an RPR mini report. This is the one you want, 8 pages. On the homes that are owned by the people in your database. 8-page report. It's got a lot of cool information in it. Satellite photo gives you the estimate of the value with a value range and a 1-month and 12-month change in value. Home and homeowner facts, value history transactions, charts and graphs. It's pretty comprehensive. It's very cool looking. And here's what we can do. We send them to the people in our database. We mail them out. And then you create a cover letter. Now here's what the cover letter says. By the way, the handout on the convention website has this letter in it. Okay? And here's what the letter says. Dear Bill and Mary, the NAR has created a database of residential properties across the U.S. It accumulates public records information on every property and also calculates the market value. And this includes an estimate of the value. I have prepared a report on your home. It's included. I thought you might be interested. The next paragraph says, please be aware that the estimate of value in the report is only an estimate. It does not take into account things you've changed, things you've done to the property, and it may need to be adjusted for market realities. If you have any question, give me a call. I'd be happy to prepare a detailed report on the value of your home if you would like. So you send these out. Let's say you send out 20 a week. Who would call? I mean, who would call about the value in the report? Some of the people that are concerned about what? The value, or it's off, right? And why would they call? Because they're thinking about selling. Isn't that cool? So now you have a really cool conversation. And then you get to do a detailed analysis on their home. And now you have a listing conversation. Would you agree? Now here's the other thing you can do. Let's say out of 22 people call. Here's what I would recommend you do. The next week, call the other 18. And now you have a reason to call. So what do you say when they answer the phone? Hi, it's me. I sent you that really cool thing in the mail. Did you get it? Did you have any questions? Oh, by the way, how's the family. So if you're in this room and you've been worrying about it's been too long, this is a great way to get it rolling. And what does this cost you? Paper and postage. Now, if you have 200 people in your database and you send out 20 a week, how long would it take? This is a word problem. How many weeks would it take? 10, right? And at the end of the 10 weeks, you would have called everybody except the people you went, yeah. Would this put you in a position to start talking to people? When would be a good time to do this? Anytime. And could you train somebody to run the reports? Does anybody know a teenager that needs something productive to do? Are you with me, guys? And this is a tool that's in our toolbox. We might as well use it. Where is what? When you put in a property, he asked, where's the 8-page report? When you put in a property address and it pulls up the information, it gives you options on what to print out. One of them is the 8-page report. It's simple. All right, let's go local. I want to put you in a position to start to connect with people locally. Here's how it works. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. First of all, we want to analyze the market. I'm going to go through a couple things here because I want you to understand a couple things about market data. We want to know where is the most activity, where are the transactions happening now, which neighborhoods are selling, what are the metrics, what are the numbers. So here's the basic numbers in our business. The turnover rate, the absorption rate, and then the ones we deal with all the time, average sold price, per square foot, days on market, months of inventory. So let's jump into this. I created a worksheet that allows you to actually analyze the market in any neighborhood. By the way, if you want any of the stuff that I'm showing you up here, before you leave, hand me a business card and I'll email it to you. Is that a good idea? Okay. The turnover rate is the percentage of homes in an existing area that sell in a year. So in other words, if we're going to look at a neighborhood, we want to know how many rooftops there are in the neighborhood. Now, how do we get to that data? Who could we ask to tell us? A title company, right? Where else could we go? Tax records. We could go into the public record system and maybe do that. If that's complicated, you're not sure you could do it that way, here's another thing you can do. Go to Google Earth, zoom in, count roofs. Now, I know that sounds stupid, but could you pay a teenager to do it? And you only need the data once, which is kind of cool. But you want to know how many homes are there, and then we want to know what percentage sell in a year. Now, the average turnover in a neighborhood is 4 to 8%. 4 to 8. That's the average neighborhood turnover. Now, one of the things that's interesting about this is that condos and townhomes will have a higher rate. Why is that? Who lives there? Starters and older people. Second homeowners. Who else? Just married, just divorced, right? All kinds of people that are in transition, so they move more often. Now, by the way, if you're entering into a seller's market, I want to point out this very unique dynamic that happens in that kind of market shift. You have people living there that would like to sell that had to wait, and we talked about that earlier, right? So you'll analyze a neighborhood and you'll see a very low turnover rate. Don't be discouraged because you may be in a situation where when the value gets up to a certain point, you see a large percentage of the people sell in a very short period of time. Why? Because they've been waiting. Okay? So if there's 1,000 homes in a neighborhood and there was 100 sales, what's the turnover rate as a percentage? 10%. Let's talk about the absorption rate. The absorption rate is the percentage of the inventory that sells in a month. Sells in a month. And it's going to tell us if it's a buyer or seller market, and it's going to tell us the months of inventory. So let's do this. If we look at a neighborhood and there's 50 homes on the market, and last month there were 5 sales, what percentage of the inventory sold last month? 10%, right? I don't. I just include the actual sales. Good question. How many months of inventory is that? In other words, we have 50 homes on the market. They're selling currently at the rate of 5 per month. How many months would it take to sell the 50? 10. Awesome. The next class is remedial math. It happens right after this. Yeah. So is that a buyer's market or a seller's market? 10 months of inventory. Buyer's market, right? So if we did it again, there were 25 sales. What percentage of the inventory sold last month? 50. How many months of inventory are there? 2. Is that a buyer's or seller's market? Seller's market. Is this an important piece of information to have? Now, do you think you could go into the MLS, figure out how to do the searches to get to this information, and then is there a really cool thing you can do in your MLS where you can save a search? Has anybody ever done that? So once you figure out how to do it once and spend the time figuring out how to get to the information, you could save all the searches, and then next month, what does it take to actually rerun the data? How long does it take? What do you think? If that, right? And you know that almost no one does it. And someone will ask us, how's the market? You know what we say? It's unbelievable. Is that an answer? How about if your answer sounded like this? Well, in this market, the turnover rate from last year to this year has gone from 4% to 7%. The average price has gone up 16%. Days on market has dropped from 92 to 67. And the absorption rate has gone from 15% to 40%. Things are much better this year than last year. Ooh. What did you just say to that person? It had nothing to do with numbers. I know my stuff. Do you think people like to work with people that know their stuff? And how long does it take to have that information? It only takes a couple of minutes. Does that help you connect? That's the value of the data. Now, what can you do with the data? Analyze different neighborhoods, pick the right neighborhood for the right reason. Do the owners have equity? Is there a lack of inventory? Any other agent competition? So you find the area you want to focus in. Create a market report. This is a market report. So in my mind, this is a single piece of paper. It's 11 by 17. So when you fold it in half, you have a letter-sized document. Is that simple? Now on the cover, you name the report, you put your contact information, and you might include a picture of yourself that was taken not very long ago. Like this century. Does everyone know what I'm talking about? Okay. So on the inside, you get to express what kind of data you have, and then on the back, you can give a message or whatever. If you want to create half of this as a mailing panel, if you fold it over one more time, what could you do with it? You could mail it. Now, here's what's cool about this. I recommend you consider doing something like this 4 times a year. Not every month, because if we try to do it every month, what will happen? We won't do it. And we know ourselves, we know we won't do it. But if it's only 4 times a year, once you create it, all you have to do is rebuild this part. Would we do it 4 times a year? Here's the great thing about 4 times a year. You can say, here's what happened this quarter, and if we compare it to what happened the same quarter last year, the difference or the trend. Everybody get me? We can talk about the trend. Here's what's cool about this. That's the kind of information they have trouble getting to, is the trend. And if you give somebody one of these, what does it say about you in this area? You know what you're doing, right? Okay, it's a power tool. It's a power tool. What could you do with it? Could you take it to open houses? Would that be a good thing in an open house? Just give them to everybody that comes in? Or do you just have one? You just have one. Here's what you get to say. I've got this really cool thing you might want to have. If you want to have it, you just have to give me your stuff. What's your stuff? Your contact information, right? It turns out that we're in the business of getting other people's stuff, and that's called a trade. Good idea? Who else could you send it to? Past clients? Could you send it to business owners? Good idea, right? Okay. Door knocking with report. Remember when we talked about door knocking? This is what you bring. Hey, I'm so-and-so, such and such real estate company. Here's some current information on the properties in the area. You give them this. They're not moving. What impression did you just make with one piece of paper? You know your stuff. If you want a copy of this, just give me a business card. I'll email it to you. Is that a good idea? Okay. All right, I'm going to give you some technology things. We've got a couple minutes left. The UPS EDDM system. This is really cool. This is really unusual, too, and here's what it is. This is from the government. I want to make sure you hear me. It's from the government. It's easy to use, and it works. Let me say that again. It's from the government. It's easy to use, and it works. Here's what it is. It's every door direct mail. It's a mailing system from the post office. It's based on a map. You don't need to know the addresses. You don't need a bulk mail permit. You don't need an advanced doctorate degree in bulk mail permit, whatever stuff, right? You choose the carrier route. You pay the postage. You take the receipt to the post office with the stuff that you want mailed, and they just put one piece in every mailbox. Is that cool? Is anybody currently getting a lot of political postcards, or is it just me? This is how they do it. It does not work with P.O. boxes. It does not work with P.O. boxes. But here's how it works. This is a map. This is Highlands Ranch. Over here are the carrier routes. So all you do is click the box. It shows you where the mail would go. At the bottom here, it tells you how much it would be. You pay for the postage, and then you take the items that you want mailed to the post office. Is that cool? If you're not doing this and you really want to mail, this is what's cool about it. It's like 16.3 cents a piece. Does it rock? Anybody doing it? Is that a good? Is this an opportunity? Okay. Lots of door knocking. If you only have PO now. Yeah. Now, there are companies that will actually package the printing and the mailing through the system together. So if you want to check that out, here's a company that does that. They have a website called everydoordirectmail.com. That's correct. Our post office was not smart enough to get that actual URL. And what they'll do is actually package the mailing and the printing together. So you never have to actually what? Touch it. Every door direct mail. And I'm going to give you a couple other pieces of technology. Quantum Digital Q Cards. Here's what Quantum Digital Q Cards is. Quantum Digital is an online printing company. You go to a website that is quantumdigital.com, and they're a printing company. So what you can do is send them a PDF file of like a brochure on a property, and they'll print copies of it and mail it to you or mail it to the property. It's pretty cool, but there's a number of those. What's neat about this one is that this company has an app, and here's what the app allows you to do. You have to go to quantumdigital.com. You have to create an account. So you put in all your contact information. You put in your logo. You put in your picture. You put in your phone number. And you put in your credit card because they want to know how to collect, right? But you establish an account. Now, once you've done that, then you go to either Google Play or the App Store and you download the app called Q Cards. And then you sign into the app with your account information. Does everyone follow what I just did? Here's what you can then do. You can use your phone to take a picture. That becomes the picture of the postcard. Right on the phone, you flip the card over, you write the message. The system uploads all of your contact information, your logo, your picture. Then you go to a map and you say, I want to send X number to around this spot in the world. And when you hit send, it prints jumbo postcards the next day, 8.5 by 5.5 color, both sides, and mails them out for you at 63 cents a piece, right from your phone. Is that cool? You like it? Let me give you 2 ways to use it. Here's 2 ways. The way number 1 is this. You're in a listing appointment and the seller asks you the question. They love to ask, what do you do differently to market my house that other agents don't do? And you say, well, actually, I have some proprietary software on my phone. It allows me to print and send postcards right from my phone. I've already taken a picture of your house. As soon as you tell me we're going to work together, I'm going to hit send, and tomorrow the mailing will go out. So what I want you to know about my marketing plan is I'm going to start marketing your house before I get back to my car. Dude, I want to get the listing. Yeah. We can get a high-quality picture later. I want to get the listing. Good idea? Or let's say maybe you have this situation. You're working with a buyer and you can't find a house. Anybody know an agent like that? Okay, so let's say your buyer wants to live in Shady Acre subdivision. No listings. One day you're out showing them properties. You drive over to Shady Acres. You get them out of the car. You stand them up next to the monument that says what? Welcome to Shady Acres. You take their picture. That becomes the picture on the postcard. On the back you write, Dear homeowner, meet Bill and Mary. Bill and Mary want to live in your neighborhood. There's no house to buy. If you'd like to sell your house or thinking about it, call me. Bill and Mary may want to buy your house. Bill and Mary think you're what? Wonderful. They cannot stop talking about this. And you're going to get some calls potentially from people that want to sell their house. And Bill and Mary don't even want to buy it. Is that cool? This company has one other thing that I think is really cool. They have map mail. And I'm going to tell you real quickly what map mail does. Map mail actually is a postcard mailing system that's married to a demographic filter. You have to do it on their website, quantumdigital.com, but here's what you get to do. You define a neighborhood by any shape you want, and then you get to say, I only want to mail a postcard to the people in this neighborhood that have owned their house for like 10 years, make more than $100,000 a year, and have kids. And they pull that list for you. They only mail to those houses. Can you do target marketing with that kind of tool? Is that a cool idea? Quantum Digital Map Mail. All right, open houses for seller leads. I'm going to quickly go through this because we're going to run out of time here, but 57% of all open house visitors are local sellers who are interviewing you to sell their house. It's just when they come in the open house, they don't say that. What do they say? Just looking. And then we think they're nosy neighbors and we what? We discount them. Okay, so what if you did your open houses to connect with sellers? Create an invitation, use an open house sign writer, place ads on Craigslist, use a lot of signs with your picture, use an inventory book or slideshow in the open house for all the other properties that are on the market. And then you might use the Open Home Pro sign-in sheet on a tablet to sign people into your open house. Open Home Pro. Works pretty well. And then create a slideshow of market data on your laptop. If you've already done the research and you have the data points, it might look like this. So you put it on a PowerPoint, you put it on auto advance, and then you put it on loop. So once you get it up and running, it just continues to run. And they just see all this data, and then they eventually ask you, what is all that? And you get to say, this is all the data I do on this neighborhood and the ones close by. If you would like, I'll send you the slides for free, as long as you give me your stuff. So when they ask you, how's the market? You've got a real answer. We already talked about that. Are you thinking about moving sometime in the next 5 years? That is a great question to ask people in an open house, because they'll own up to it, and then you can engage with them. And then you could say something like this. Would you like to work with an agent that knows a neighborhood like me, or just a regular one? All right, 2 more ideas and we're done. So we may go over by a minute. You guys okay? All right, here's one of them. Pre-open house party for the seller. You got a new listing, the open house is on Saturday. You do an open house with the seller on Friday night. The seller invites the people from the neighborhood they'd like to have come over, and you have a little party with wine and cheese or hors d'oeuvres or whatever. The house looks as good as it's ever going to look because the open house is tomorrow. And this turns into what? A little social event. You're there, smiling, right? Well, you should talk to Jim and Mary. They're thinking about selling. Is that a good way to meet local neighbors that are thinking about selling? And the sellers think it's just a party. All right, one more idea. This is another idea if you're going to work locally. Wrap your car. Wrap your car. You want to talk about a way to raise brand awareness in the neighborhood when you're driving through it all the time? Nothing works like this. Now, there's one benefit to this that you may not be thinking of. It will make you a better driver. Yeah, if you cut somebody off and your phone rings, it's not a lead. So what's this about? Getting listings in a seller's market, know your data, be prospecting based, make sure you talk about the new market dynamics that's going on, connect with your sphere in a meaningful way, use targeted marketing on the right areas, build a locally focused website if you haven't, and adapt new technology, and that's how we can succeed in a seller's market. Well, thanks for being here, guys. Hope you're having a good show.